The Greater West Bloomfield community recently joined together at Abbott Middle School for the first annual State of the Communities, providing residents with an overview of the present state and future of our community. Presenting the state of the City of Orchard Lake Village, Mayor Bruce McIntyre.
Good evening. I've already learned a lot about Keego Harbor that I didn't know. So by the end of the evening, I'm going to know even more about all these communities. I want to welcome you to Orchard Lake because I think most of you know that you are in the city limits of Orchard Lake at Abbott School. So nice to have you here. Historians say that if you don't know where you've been, you don't know where you're going. So let's look back a little bit at our city. Orchard Lake was carved out of West Bloomfield as a village in 1928. There weren't many people there at the time. The vote to incorporate was 92-5. Before that, the only points of interest in the previous century in what's now Orchard Lake, which was then West Bloomfield, were the Michigan Military Academy, which became the Orchard Lake Seminary that you know, the site of the Polish Fair, which we understand is the largest outdoor fair in Michigan, and which I know many of you have gone to. Also the Presbyterian Church on Commerce Road, which was founded in the late 1800s, and the Detroit Interurban Railway that brought tourists to this area before automobiles. The Interurban, many of you know, ran between Orchard and Pine Lakes and paralleled the Grand Trunk Railroad, which is now the West Bloomfield Nature Trail. When tourists got cars, they congregated at places like Wilkins Corners, where there was a roadhouse and gas station at Orchard Lake Road and Pontiac Trail. And that began an influx of people who converted farmland into a community, then a village, and in 1964, Orchard Lake finally incorporated into being a city. Orchard Lake is about 4 square miles in size, but nearly half of that is underwater. It's a long way from one end of the city to the other, 4.5 miles. We're on 3 lakes, 8.5 miles of shoreline. Orchard Lake is entirely in the city limits, and parts of Cass and Upper Straits lakes. Also, it's interesting that Orchard Lake is at the intersection of 3 watersheds, the Clinton, Huron, and Rouge Rivers. This is where they meet. And it's also the area that Native Americans used for portaging. Over the years, the City Council and the citizens of Orchard Lake made a number of decisions that are very beneficial to people who live here now. $15.3 million in bonds were issued in the 1990s for the installation of the water and sewer system throughout the city. Bonds were also issued for the construction of the Tri-City Fire Station that's been referred to earlier, which is the building just down the street, paid for also by Keego and Sylvan. $5.7 million in bonds were issued for the purchase of the Orchard Lake Nature Sanctuary property on Pontiac Trail, west of Old Orchard Trail, which is now open to everyone. The good news is that all of those bond issues were fully paid off several years ago, so the city has no debt. Years ago, as Mayor Fletcher said, the Tri-City Fire Department provided services with paid on-call personnel, but about 16 years ago, the 3 cities entered into a contract with West Bloomfield to operate that department. That has meant 24-hour coverage for the 3 cities with advanced medical care. It also benefited the residents in the northeast corner of West Bloomfield. So where's Orchard Lake now? What are we facing? The population is stable, about 2,600. Unlike the other communities, we do not have development issues because there's very little room to grow. You'd be hard-pressed to find a building lot right now. The majority of the residential construction around the city is tear-downs and rebuilds. And unlike our neighbors, we have very little commercial property, just 2 small districts at either end of the city. So we're dependent largely on the residents to pay the bills. There's no commercial tax money coming in large amounts. The recession was hard on our city finances, just as our other cities and townships. We've been able to bounce back. However, this will be the first year that the city's taxable value gets back to where it was before it dropped. Why did it take so long? I think some of you know, in a recession, there is no limit on how far assessed values can drop. But due to Proposal A, there is a limit on how quickly they can rise. That means it's taken a decade to restore our tax base. The city has a dedicated staff and a great police department, which made sacrifices during the recession. Pay cuts, pay freezes, they deserve our thanks for that. We also should thank the citizens of Orchard Lake who accepted higher tax rates to make up for the declining values. Without that, we would have been in very bad shape. Today, I would say that we're stable but still facing some challenges. One of them is that we have outgrown City Hall, particularly in the police department. A study is going on right now to determine what to do about that. Like most cities, we must deal with unfunded liabilities for pensions and other post-employment benefits. That includes retiree health care for employees. This is for people already retired and those who will retire in the future. The city has about as many retirees as it does active employees. Our pension fund is funded at about the 70% level, and we're paying more into the fund than required. We pay for our retiree health care out of the current budget, and our projections show that this cost is gradually going to decline. So in both cases, we're in good condition because of decisions that were made almost 20 years ago. All of our new employees hired since 2000 are on defined contribution pensions and have a health savings plan for retirement. The other major obligation that we face is the upkeep of roads like the other cities and townships. But cities, unlike townships, have an obligation to maintain local streets. The county maintains Orchard Lake Road, Pontiac Trail, and Commerce Road. But Orchard Lake must maintain two heavily traveled roads, Old Orchard Trail and Indian Trail. The state never provides enough money from road taxes to cover the costs, so the local taxpayer needs to pick up the difference. During the recession, we had to cut all of our road spending, and of course that made the roads worse. Now we're catching up, and it's costly. We rate the condition of each road and street according to the PASER system, and each year we base our repairs on those conditions. However, there's an additional cost. Oakland County has a tri-party program for roads maintained by the Road Commission, but located within each city. The county, the Road Commission, and the local municipality each put in 1/3. Typically, these projects were road improvements, meaning things like added traffic lanes or new signals. However, the Road Commission has directed part of this money toward road maintenance. Recently, Commerce Road underwent a major resurfacing. It's a county road. It was a badly needed repair, but it would not have happened if Orchard Lake had not participated by contributing $70,000 from its general fund. In other words, city funds were spent to maintain a county road while we're scraping for funds to keep up our local streets. So to summarize, Orchard Lake is in pretty good shape, as good as anything I've seen in the 20 years I've been on the council. It's been possible due to a number of very devoted council members. If you'll just hold that slide for a minute so we can identify my colleagues. I want to mention in closing that we have a strong collaborative relationship, as Mayor Fletcher said, with all of the other communities. We share the fire department, police dispatch by West Bloomfield very professionally. We belong to the West Bloomfield Library, and our police departments share a mutual aid pact. Every department will answer in an emergency, and I know this will continue. So I thank you for the opportunity to share Orchard Lake's story and take any questions that you may have after this.